It says 24 hours. Yeah, 24 hours.
But I'm just staying from
Okay, councillors. May the Lord give this council the wisdom, discernment and courage to serve the community. Grant also that we may act compassionately and in integrity in the best interest of this shire. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to show respect and acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land and elders past, present and future on which this meeting takes place. This meeting is being audio recorded and those in attendance should refrain from making any offensive statements. There will be no other recordings of this meeting without the prior authorization of council. Thank you, councillors. Okay, welcome councillors to the annual meeting and ask for apologies.
Mr. Mayor, we have one apology from Councillor Abbott.
Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Driscoll. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Public participation. We've got one public participation, is Mr. Peter Hayden on DA 106-2020. Is Peter coming? So I'll go straight and I'll let him speak. Go straight on. Welcome, Mr. Hayden, and yeah, you can come forward if you wish to the microphone. And you've got 5 minutes to speak on that particular item, and you'll hear after 5 minutes. We'll give you a bell after 4, and they'll give you 1 more minute. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, well, I'd like to firstly thank the council very much for this opportunity to talk against this proposed development. We just think it's been sort of slightly misrepresented in a number of ways. The first thing is that the first dwelling that they applied for a rural dwelling for extra rural employees, they were granted that and they built a new house which they now live in, and the other place is actually not used for rural workers, it is rented out. So when I approached council, they said, well, if you can prove and show that's rented out, well, that'll be the end of it. So that's certainly what's happened. But to make the situation worse, they've now applied for a third dwelling for more rural workers. So and we know that's for the son. So that's what really does concern us, that it has been sort of a bit misrepresented there. That and the other thing is that to try to get the numbers right for this, they have put a business model in to say that they can run 55 horses. So this is on such a small area. We know that that's just not totally feasible at all. We've already seen this block, even with a fraction of the number of horses on. It's just been no ground cover, a dust bowl, and you should ask the next door neighbour because they've got the topsoil already in their veranda. So I just want to know whether they're going to apply for a horse feedlot with that sort of business model. So they're mainly the 2 points that we think just don't stack up with this particular proposal, is that there is a history already of it being rented out, so it's not needed for extra rural workers, and there's no way that such a small block like that, it's on ridge country as well with a little bit of flat, could possibly sustain that number of horses. So if you have any other questions, I'm very welcome, please, to answer them or whatever.
Councillors, any councillor got questions for Mr. Hayden? No questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The council, just add that was on SCR 3.2. I didn't say that at the beginning. 3.2, wasn't it? 3.2.
Yes.
Okay, council, move on to dot point 5, confirmation of the minutes, ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of February. Got a mover? Move councillor Watts, second councillor Fisher. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Disclosure of interest.
Mr Mayor, I have two conflicts of interest lodged. The first is from councillor Watts on item CR 3.1, the confidential report on the commencement of legal proceedings for breaches of development consent, for the reason that the applicant is a volunteer of an organisation councillor Watts manages. She will remain in the room and not vote as it's a non-pecuniary matter, but she will take no action. The second is a conflict of interest declared by councillor James Burns on the same item, CR 3.1, the confidential report, commencement of legal proceedings for breaches of development consent. It's a pecuniary interest as the property is a neighbouring property of his family's, and he will remove himself from the room and not take part in any discussion.
Thank you, Mr GM. We'll move on to 7, Merrill Minute, A03.1, recognition of length of service. I'll move that Merrill Minute. Don't need one. So I've been told. Okay, we'll read these out. Mary Headley is 20 years of service. Marie commenced with the council in March 2001 as a creditor's clerk. 6 months later, she moved into a maternity relief position in payroll before taking maternity leave in 2004. Marie returned to council part-time in August 2005, working in the payroll finance before taking another stint of maternity leave in 2007. In 2009, she commenced part-time as a HR assistant before reverting to familiar territory, taking on the current full-time role as payroll supervisor in 2015. Marie has recently been helping in other areas of finance, assisting in budget preparations and finance reports. Congratulations, Marie, on 20 years service of the Upper Hunter Shire Council. Mick Jones, 40 years of service. Mick started with the former Scone Shire Council in March 1981 as a labourer. In 1990, he acquired the role of medium plant truck driver until 1999, when he became a grader operator and still is in this role today. When he first started in 1981, they were paid by cheque and had no air conditionings in the equipment. Imagine Mick putting up with that today. Mick is the second longest standing former Scone Shire Council employee and has seen many changes along the way. Mick has been involved in maintenance grading on most of the Upper Hunter Shire roads. Some of the major roads he has worked on are Charles's Cutting near Moonam Flat and the Barrington Tops Road, which back in the day was nothing but a narrow, windy track. Congratulations, Mick, on 40 years of service for the Upper Hunter Shire Council. David Jones, 20 years of service with the council. David Jones commenced work with the former Scone Shire Council in March 2001 as a field officer. He was appointed as relief operator, Scone Aberdeen Sewage Treatment Plant in March 2002 and sewer treatment plant operator in 2003. David has been performing in his current role for 18 years. David is responsible for all operations and maintenance activities in both Scone and Aberdeen Sewage Treatment Plant. David is a reliable employee in the water and sewage team. David received an Upper Hunter Shire Council Work Health and Safety Award in September 2017 for his dedication to keep Scone and Aberdeen STPs as safe work areas. Congratulations, David, for 20 years service of the Upper Hunter Shire Council. Lastly, Gaynor Blackadder. Gaynor, I'll ask you to come forward, please. Gaynor has served for 20 years service with the council. Gaynor started at the former Merriwar Shire Council as an administration trainee, working in customer service in October 1999 and had completed her Certificate 2 and 3 in Business Administration. During this time, before taking maternity leave, In December 2000, Gaynor returned to council part-time in March 2001, and in April 2002 secured full-time work as a customer service officer, continuing the role after amalgamations in 2004. During her time with council, Gaynor has worked in other areas such as Service New South Wales, Environment Services, Infrastructure Services, Rates, Debtors, Creditors, Payroll, RFS, Supervising and Monitoring Staff, and more recently, Gaynor is in the secondment position working as Lands Assistance during with council properties, Crown Land and Native Titles. Gaynor, congratulations for 20 years of service. We thank you very, very much and for your dedication of work. Thank you very much. You like to speak? Sure. Thought I was getting out of that. Where you want us? Okay. Are you sure you don't want to stay? Okay, thank you. Okay, council, we'll move straight on the standing committee reports. SCR 03.1 Corporate Services. Got a mover?
I'll move that.
Move councillor Burns. Second to councillor Campbell. Questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Over to SCR 03.2 Development Environmental Services. Councillors, we've got 4 points. Can someone move the adoption of the minutes first, please? Move councillor Fisher. Second, councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, on to dot point 2 is DESC 03.1 is refusal development application of the Roscoe Dartbrook gravel quarries. Move councillor Fisher. Second, councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? I'll show of hands, sorry, yes. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, councillors, DES C03.2 refused the development application for gravel pit at lot 1112 Roscoe Road. Can a mover? Move councillor Watts. Second, councillor Fisher. Any questions, comment, discussion? In favour, hands please. Against? Carried. Councillors, DSC 03.3 approved the development application number 106/2020 to construct a rural workers dwelling at lot 31 DP 793375 30 Timewell Road, Blandford. Subject, move councillor Fisher. Second, councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion?
I'd like to speak against.
Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden. I don't support this recommendation. The business case that we have received is very light on. I'd like to see a peer review on the business case. Just in relation to the number of animals approved seem very high. It would be, I mean, if we're back in a drought, we're going to have issues with that amount of horses on this very small land piece. But I think the biggest thing is I'd like councillors to reconsider and look at maybe a peer review on the business case that's been put forward.
Thank you, councillors. Well, I have a mover and I have a seconder. So I'll show of hands those in favour of the development. Against? The motion is carried. Okay, councillors, we move over to page 38. Infrastructure services. Move councillor Campbell. Seconded councillor Burns. Questions, comment, discussion?
I would, with the movers' permission, like to add a fifth point in there. If that would be.
Depends what it is.
Well, the motion that I've got in front of me, that council place a traffic counter be placed at the appropriate points on Yarrandai Road after roadworks in order to gain effective information on the road during good repair.
Yeah, look, I support that. In fact, I thought that was already going to be, it was discussed at the infrastructure, and I thought that was implemented. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to support that.
Yeah, I understand that it's in the, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that it's in the infrastructure report. I'd just like it put into the council resolution.
Mr Mayor, are we doing this all as one?
Was, yes. Yeah, that's infrastructure services. Yeah, we mostly do that as one, yeah. The mover was councillor Fisher, wasn't it?
No, councillor Campbell.
Councillor Campbell. Seconder was?
Me. Yeah,
Councillor Burns. So, Councillor Campbell, you happy to put dot point 5 in?
Yes, thank you. I'm happy for that. I thought it was, yes, I am happy.
Okay. Any more questions, comment, discussion around it? Councillor Watts?
I did have concerns in relation to the village, but reticulation, but I have spoke to Mr Hood and he has explained it a little bit better. Reading it in the car coming home yesterday, I didn't know where I was coming from, but I am pleased that the fact that the upgrade to a full town water supply is still on the horizon. If the village people do desire that, I'd hate to see a repeat of what we've already experienced with Middlebrook and the cost involved with relooking at their water supply. I'd also like to ask in relation to the local roads. We've put here to make representation to our local member. Who is council going to make representation to? We don't have a local member at the moment. He's stood down or taken time off, stepped aside. So who will we be responding to?
Mr GM.
My understanding is the local member is still the local member. He stood down from his parliamentary secretary duties, but until there's a by-election, while he may be on leave, he's technically still the member. So we can still send it through to his office. If he's on leave, his office staff will deal with those matters, I imagine, while he's on leave and until such time as he comes back.
No more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, did Robin get that amended? Did Robin get the amended point?
I'd imagine dot point 6, Robin, you would have put down.
Dot point 5.
5, sorry. Yep, that's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, councillor Reno, over to page 56, C03.1 Floodplain Management Committee. Move councillor Fisher. Second. Councillor Watts. Questions, comment, discussion?
Yeah, I have a
Councillor
question.
Campbell.
Mr Mayor, yeah, point 2, amend the committee charter by reducing the number of council members committee from 4 to 3. What's the reason behind that?
Through Mr Mayor, I guess it seems to be quite a high number of councillors required on that committee, and I think be a bit more manageable with 3 rather than 4, just to ensure we have a quorum and so forth.
All in favour? Against? Carried. C03.2 White Park Management and Development Committee. Move councillor Fisher. Second, councillor Watts. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Over to C03.3 Scone CBD Revitalisation Committee.
Moved.
Move with an amendment, councillor Fisher.
Just in point 5, that we change the word accept to the word note.
I'll get a second for that. Second to councillor Watts. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can we split these?
We can if you wish to. Which ones do you wish to split?
We'll
Individually, do them individually?
Pull the amended one out and do it separately if that's all right.
So you want to pull 5 out, you want to move 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6?
Yep.
Got a second?
Mover's happy with that.
Movers happy with that? Okay, councillors, so all in favour of the 1, 2, 3?
Just as a comment there, Mr. Mayor, I'll just make my reasoning on that known. I'm not ready to note it. I'm ready to accept it. The community has spoken. We went out, we got a massive community consultation. I know that we have further work to do, but option B was clearly the winner through the community consultation, and I am comfortable with it. So I'm just saying that.
So you only want to comment, or you still want me to split them, councillor Burns?
No, still split them.
Still split them, so we're going to move and the seconder, the 1, 2, 3, 4 and 6.
Yes.
No more questions, comment, discussion around those. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, we're dealing with dot point 5, which councillor Fisher moved. Councillor Burns, do you wish to speak?
No, I think I've said enough.
No, you.
Councillor Watts?
I'd just like to say that Councillor Fisher and myself attended the meeting the other night that was on, and while we note what the committee have recommended, I think that as a council we need to take on board all the submissions and be able to look at the planning ourselves as a council. There was 4 councillors missing on that night, and while we've had plenty of time, it still is that there was 4 councillors missing on that night, not all are able to attend. I think we need to have a look at the plans ourselves as a council and make those decisions before we go ahead and put through this recommendation, which will be too hard to change if it needs to be in the future.
Councillor Fisher, do you wish to speak?
No, I think Councillor Watts has summed it up pretty well. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, look, I wasn't at that meeting and I just was not able to attend. However, I just think that the longer we just let these things go on, I did read that there was, I think, over 200 submissions for consideration, which meant that the community certainly spoke. I think this business of just going back out to the community all the time, I tend to think sometimes can be noted as a delaying tactic. I just wonder whether is that, and the interest that has been shown with those open days. I understand when Al Fletcher was noting that there's a lot of people came in and put forward their ideas, but I believe that is what community consultation is about. So I'm really concerned that we're just going to continue to go back on this same idea. Fine. I just think that probably it's gone on for so long that we just should move forward. And if the chairman of the CBD committee is happy that those consultation sessions were productive and that there was agreement in that, are you sure that that's what you believe to be the outcome of those meetings?
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's exactly what the information, the numbers stack up. B came out on top. That's a net increase of parking on what we've got now, at the same time as retaining the left-hand turning lane, which has a 40% turn rate out to the western side of the Shire from Liverpool Street. Onto Liverpool Street. It gives us scope to actually make the engineering changes that we need to make with regards to some other things that are going on, which, you know, are in further design features. Simply put, the option B is not really going to affect anything else. It's what the people wanted. They wanted their parking back there. We've given them their net parking. Sorry, we recommended their net parking. Sorry. Apologies.
Yeah, just very briefly. No one, I'm not arguing against option B, certainly, but I don't want to go into this further workshop where I strongly recommend that all the councillors are present and have their input. This is, you know, a very, very important set of decisions that we're about to embark upon, and we all need to be there. 4 of us were not at that meeting, the workshop the other day, and one councillor is an apology tonight. So, you know, this is a whole of council decision. It needs to be, you know, made properly with a full contingent of councillors and everybody on board. I accept that certainly my preference of those 3 options put forward was option B, and I expect that option B is the one that will eventually be chosen by the council. However, I'm not prepared to go into a further workshop with a design feature already locked in that may or may not, and we might conceivably have to rescind part 5, the acceptance, you know, should further changes be made. So I just don't think it's productive for us to go into this meeting, and it's not going to be deferred, you know, for long. We're talking about a workshop within 2 weeks and possibly an extraordinary general meeting, council meeting, to discuss this and vote upon it. So the delay is not going to be long or thing. It's not going to go out for further consultation. It's just a question of doing it prudently with all options on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. So, Councillor Fisher, you still going to move that you note as your original recommendation?
Yes.
And Councillor Watts, you still seconding that? Councillor Burns, do you wish to put amendment up on that or not? Well, you do. I'm quite happy, and I was on leave, and I really enjoyed it. But I have read it all, and I think it's fairly clear that option B is what the community want. But I've got no issues on deferring this for a very short time period, as long as we get the staff that can do this, and we can have this workshop ASAP. And if we've got to call another extraordinary meeting, we will. Councillor Burns.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear from the General Manager on what's the earliest we can do a workshop before I foreshadow an amendment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in response to Councillor Burns, obviously it's a short week this week. We've got Easter. I have commenced staff working on a number of the options in regard to all the design features for the main street, in regards to all the community consultation that was received. I would suspect the earliest we could have it would be late in the week after we come back from Easter. So I think Easter Monday is the 6th or thereabout, the 5th, I think. So it would be probably the Thursday or the Friday of that week. We would have something ready to go. If we could do it earlier, we will, but I'd be pushing it, I think, to have it early in that week.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll foreshadow an amendment to the note to say that a workshop be held with all councillors invited no later than the 9th of April.
You happy with that, Councillor Fisher, to put in your?
Well, actually, I'm all for getting on with it, absolutely. But that is actually a part for point 6 rather than point 5. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The workshop,
Yeah, I do.
Clear clause of point 6. So if you want to go back and add that in, that's I'm quite sure how we do that, but I'm sure it's possible.
Yep. You happy, Councillor Burns?
I'm happy if we can get that into point 6, as long as the GM can sort of guarantee that it's in there.
I imagine the GM will do all he can in his power to make it happen. Yes. Yes. Okay, you happy with that? Thank you. All in favour of that little changed amendment on 5?
Could you read just the changes, make sure we're all clear on that?
Councillor Fisher?
So point 5 would change to note the Scone CBD Revitalisation Committee's recommendation to select option B for parking and left turn lane at intersection of Kelly and Liverpool streets.
I thought we were going to have the date included in that, no later than 9.
That wasn't my amendment, that was
I see.
councillor Burns's.
And councillor Burns is reasonably happy with the general manager's response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Good chat.
Page 100, C03.4 Aberdeen Revitalisation Committee. Got a mover. Move councillor Fisher, seconder councillor Driscoll. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. C03.5, page 103, Audit Risk and Improvement Committee. Move councillor Fisher, second. Councillor Watts. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. C03.6, page 123, Scone and Upper Hunter Regional Sale Yards Committee. Move councillor Watts, second councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 129, C03.7, the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Councillor Campbell.
Can I these two be dealt with separately, please? Would I foreshadow a motion on point 2?
Okay, councillors, we'll just put dot point 1 up, adopt the minutes. Move councillor Watts, second
Seconded.
Fisher. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Dot point 2, councillor Campbell, you like to?
Thank you. Yes, move it that we change the wording that council not give consideration to the committee's recommendation to formally object to the Hunter gas pipeline. It's very much being made, I believe, a politicised thing which shouldn't be involved with the council, and I just believe that we shouldn't be trying to formally object to this gas pipeline going down. So I'll move that it not give consideration to the committee's recommendation to formally object to the Hunter gas pipeline.
So, councillors, it hasn't been moved yet, so he's actually moving something, so that's fine. If it was already moved, he couldn't move an amendment that was a direct opposite, but as it hasn't been moved, it's quite a...
Okay, so have I got a seconder for that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconder, councillor Driscoll. Any more questions, comment, discussion around it?
It doesn't actually say anything if you have it worded that way. That's all. I'm a little bit confused.
Mr GM, do we need to clarify a bit more wording on it, or?
Councillors, it's Councillor Campbell's motion. I think what he's trying to, I guess, suggest is that council not take this matter any further.
That's exactly right. We're not. That's right. We're not formally object to this Hunter gas pipeline.
So it was moved, councillor Campbell, second, councillor Driscoll. We've got a speaker against the new recommendation.
I think that's very narrow-minded to not give consideration to whether we support this or not. To be honest, it's the word object is slightly perhaps not the right word. The word should probably be opposed, because there's nothing to object to. The project is approved. It's given critical state government status, which means it's very hard to oppose. It's, however, this is causing considerable grief for a bunch of landowners. The pipeline owners is trying to, or the pipeline group is trying to move their pipeline onto public land, onto travelling stock routes, onto other things. There's considerable opposition to it further up the road in the Liverpool Plains Shire that I'm led to believe. I think we do need to have a conversation. And this is what this, it's not my recommendation, but that's what I think is what they're trying to do. Other groups of farmers are concerned about a transmission line going across their land. And I don't see that this is terribly different. This is a pipeline going across farming land.
So Danny, I'll make a comment on it. I honestly haven't had enough feedback from anyone about the residents of the Upper Hunter Shire, the feelings of it. So I'm very much in the air.
Well, you and I had a this came up very briefly in a conversation while you were away on holiday, and I think you made the suggestion that perhaps a public meeting where affected landowners could come together under our aegis and discuss this and put their views forward, whether they're for it or against it. I've been told that many are against. That may or may not be the case. Sometimes you hear the loudest, who are perhaps not the majority. So until we find this out, I don't think we should be not considering what our position is.
So in saying that, Councillor Campbell, would you be prepared to put in there that we go out to community consultation and get feedback on it?
Not really. Look, this is about objecting to the Hunter gas pipeline. It's been brought up in infrastructure before by Councillor Abbott continuously. She's brought that up with a recommendation from this sustainability recommendation on page 132 that the Upper Hunter Shire object to the Upper Hunter gas pipeline. And I just think that this is not right, that we shouldn't be doing that. To suggest that the gas pipeline is similar to a transmission line is total furphy, because when the gas pipeline goes down in the ground, you can farm over it, you can do what you like, but transmission lines over farming land is totally different. It's a totally separate item, and I don't believe the two should be confused. I just think that this has been going on for some time. It's all to do with the particular councillor's personal view and politicised. And I just think it's just time the council stood back out of that and let's get on with some of the things that we should be doing as a council.
Okay, Councillor Fisher,
If you want to change the word of the recommendation, that's fine. As I say, the word object, the project is approved, so the word object tends to involve development applications, etc., etc. I think we should, as a council, give consideration and hear from affected landowners before we come to whether we support or oppose this project. And I think it's wrong that just because maybe comments being made that one councillor is ideologically opposed to this. Well, maybe some other councillors are ideologically for this, for fossil fuels and gas. But I do think that the community, particularly affected landowners, should be consulted and considered and given the opportunity to talk to us about what they would like us to do.
So Councillor Fisher, would you like to foreshadow that and put that as a motion? Do we go out to community, or what's your feelings on that? Or I can put the other motion up, the motion of Councillor Campbell's, to have it removed completely.
I take I'll take the General Manager's advice on that. I think the motion has been moved and it should be voted on, shouldn't it?
Okay, well, we're going to go back to Councillor Campbell's to have that completely removed. So, show of hands to remove it. Yeah. There's 3 to remove it. Against to leave it. But I'd like to foreshadow it to say that we go to the community consultation. So I'd like to foreshadow, I'm not going to vote for it, I'd like to move that we foreshadow it and we go to and ask the public to tell us.
Seconded.
Yeah, second amendment. Did someone else speak?
Yeah, I did.
Yes.
I'll second it for you.
Councillor Burns will second it. Any questions, comment, discussion around that foreshadowed second amendment?
Yeah, look, all right. However, it should be the affected landowners. We don't want to have renter crowd there, and which sometimes happens. It should be only with the affected landowners, not with everybody, because it just becomes then totally politicised and gets out of hand altogether. If it's going to be that way, have it to the affected landowners, and I'd support that.
Mr. GM, can we do that?
Technically, what you're putting forward is an amendment. You probably shouldn't have voted on the other one in advance. So you need to, I think if moving forward, you need to vote on the amendment. Now, put the amendment. If the amendment gets up, it becomes the motion.
So the amendment was Councillor Campbell's. It got lost. I'm going to put mine up now then.
Okay, yep.
Can I put mine up? Which is to go to the people, but I probably need to put in there the affected landholders.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Well,
just
it
offer a point of clarification? The objection from the Sustainability Committee was only based on the pipeline being at odds with Council's adopted position on climate change. It wasn't an objection based on impact to landowners, just to make that clear.
Look, if I might butt in again, I think it's important that we consult with potentially affected landowners. And the route of this pipeline it seems to be changing quite frequently. It's moving all over the place. You and I have had meetings with affected landowners already, or their representatives. How we identify them is going to be quite tricky because, as I said, there are several potential routes, but we know roughly the parameter. And let's be frank. I think council is potentially one of those affected landowners. So we do need to form a position on what we think about this.
Mr. Pringle, we can identify those landowners.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, there's an approved corridor, so we can identify those landowners.
Yep. Okay, so I'm still going to go through with that in a second by Councillor Burns. Any more questions, comment, discussion around it?
Just read the motion out there we're talking about, please.
Quite simple that we go out to the affected landholders and have community consultation, and it'll probably be in the room. But those affected where the pipeline goes actually through their properties.
Yeah, all right, okay.
No more questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Over to page 133, C03.8, Apahara and Kiora Youth Music Committee. Move Councillor Watts, second. Seconder, please.
Seconded.
Second, Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, over to page 136, G03.1, request for donations. Do you wish to do this separately or in a block? Separate, Councillor Watts. So recommendation 1.
Sorry. Can I actually amend that to say, well, to include the 960 as part of the sponsorship money already provided by council?
You can. Is there a seconder? Second, Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion?
If I may,
Councillor Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, look, each one of the festivals and horse parades all depend very much on council and council donations, sponsorship, and also support. And I recognise that. Festival of the Fleeces would not progress if it wasn't for the council support and their in kind. And I suggest that probably the Scone Horse Festival would be very much in the same boat, although it's a totally different, separate type of affair. parade, etc. But we do, and I'm quite happy to support the sponsorship and the money that goes to each one of the festivals in this way. So I support that motion.
Any more questions, comment, discussion? I'll put the recommendation up. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, dot point 2, $200 to the Rotary Club of Merriwar.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Move Councillor Campbell, second Councillor Watts. Any questions, comment, discussion?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, look, this was brought to me some time ago regarding not the donation, but rather the fact that they're trying to recognise the senior citizens in Merriwar at that time. They weren't able to have their annual Christmas party, and so this is something that the Rotary have done to just give the recognition to the senior cits. Some of the treasurer, etc., and president were not as young as they used to be. In fact, Mary O'Neill, I think, is in her 90s. And she was discussing with me the fact that it's just getting too much. So I think it's a great recognition of our senior sits in Merriwar, and so I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. No more questions, comment, discussion?
I just have one question, Mr. Mayor. The financial implications on the Shire, I know that we're going to look at grants from LLS and land care groups and whatnot, and that's fantastic, and I fully support this. But we're preparing a plan of management for the site in accordance. What's that going to cost us?
Okay, Councillor Burns, you've jumped the page, mate. We're still back on 136 on dot point 2, the $200 donation to the Rotary.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
Okay,
I've done it again.
all in favour? Against? Carried. Over to G03.2, proposed community nursery Merriwar. We're going to move it. Councillor Fisher, seconder. Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion?
The same question that I just asked.
Okay. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Can I get the answer?
I'd like to answer that, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the plan of management that's prepared by council staff. The land is identified as community land, and so we do have to prepare a plan of management for that land for this proposed use.
Yeah, so in the financial implications, it's got the cost of establishing the community nursery will be funded from external sources, including grants obtained through local land services and land care. It doesn't take into account how much staff hours we're going to put into this, and therefore the cost to the ratepayer. That's the type of information I think we need to start seeing in these reports to see, you know, what we're actually imposing on council at the same time.
Okay, that's just a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. All in
Mr. Mayor, look, I support that. This was quite a surprise, really. I didn't. The idea behind this is quite good. I'm not sure because it's a community-run event, or not event, partnership project. Just how long it's been volunteers are not able to take their role. I just don't know. Are we going to be left with just a block of land? And can it be changed to something else if needs be? If this doesn't look, this is going well at the present time because we've got some people that are very enthusiastic about growing these things and these little plants, etc., etc. But on the other hand, once it comes back to council, then will it mean that it's another burden for council?
Any directors wish to answer that, or we just take that as a comment? Just a comment. Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 149, G03.3, the Scone RV parking site.
Mr. Mayor should move this one.
I would love to move this from the chair. Thank you,
I'll
Councillor.
second it for you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Burns. Any questions, comment, discussion?
Get it done.
All in favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 155, G03.4, Scone CBD Revitalisation Committee vacant position. Councillors, you should have 4 there in front of you somewhere. You should have an extra copy.
I would move that this be put into confidential, Mr. Mayor.
You moving to put that into confidential? Okay, we've got a
Yes.
seconder. I don't real sure whether we need to, Councillor Burns, if someone wishes just to nominate a person.
Oh, so, yeah, sorry. I thought we were going to. Yep. Okay.
If you'd like to nominate someone, Councillor Burns, I'll get a second and we'll move on.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to move that we appoint Guy Guiana as a private citizen, not as a police officer, to the Scone CBD Revitalisation Committee.
Have we got a second, Councillor Watts, seconder? Any questions, comment, discussion around it? All in favour? Councillor Fisher, sorry.
Only that it's good to see such a strong group of candidates put their hands up for an Aberdeen committee. I think they're all very, very worthy and would be a bonus to any committee.
Thank you. All in favour?
Absolutely. And if I could add to that, Mr. Mayor, that please keep nominating. Everyone, keep nominating.
In the future, you mean? Councillor?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that was
Please
implied.
don't keep nominating now. Okay, all in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, 157 H03.1, the policies for review.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment here. Point 2, 3, 4, and 5, I have no issue with, but point 1, the community relations, I'd like that made into a councillors' workshop with staff to discuss how that goes forward, because there are a lot of changes in there. There's implications in there as well.
So you're putting that up as a slight amendment?
I'm amending it to be deferred until we have a councillors' workshop on that matter.
Okay, so we're just going to move 2, 3, 4, and 5 at this stage. That's the way you wish to go?
Yep.
Are you moving that?
Yes.
Seconder? Councillor Campbell? Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Back to point 1, community relations, external communications policy. Councillor Burns?
Yeah, that we defer community relations policy being adopted until a councillor workshop is held on the matter.
Got a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Seconder, Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Oh, you're against? You're against? Okay. Councillor Watts against? Carried. Over to page 210. 03.1, change in water restrictions. Move Councillor Watts. Seconder. Councillor Campbell. Any questions, comment, discussion? Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, can I? Lake Glenbourne is currently standing at 55.5% of capacity. Are we being a little hasty, even with the recent rains,
Here.
moving this?
Through the Mayor, hasty in which capacity? Could you explain your comment?
Lake Glenbourne is at 55.5% of its capacity.
Yeah.
And still rising. But we've had a lot of rain. We've had a wet season, a wet year even, or a wet calendar year, 12 months. And we're still only at 55.5%. Yes, I worry that the return of adverse conditions, and we don't have the base that we started the previous drought, where the dam was pretty much at capacity, I believe, before the dry set in. I'm just a little concerned that we're not going too soon on this.
Just through the Mayor, being on level 1 is still far in advance on the restriction level that we would be on according to our current adopted plan. So we are still in advance of our currently adopted plan.
Okay, so I had a mover of councillor Watts, a seconder of councillor Campbell. The motion is as is. Any more questions, comment, discussion?
Yeah, my understanding, I seconded on the condition. I thought that there was a drought policy plan that was implemented. Was that correct? Am I correct in that assumption? Because otherwise I would tend to agree with councillor Fisher. Now, I know that it causes some perhaps how shall we say, a little dissension, the fact that Merriwa is on one and people over in this area are on two. But on the other hand, we're on a totally different aquifers and water supply. So I was just wondering, is there a plan, like a drought plan? In other words, when does it kick in, this drought plan, to reduce that back to a level 2?
Through the Mayor, even through the worst part of the drought that we've just been through, we would not have even gone to level 1 according to our current adopted plan. And so the reason that we went to level 2, with the exception of Murrurundi, so the reason we went to level 2 in Scone, Aberdeen, and the reason we went to level 1 in Merriwa and Castles, so a lot of that was to do with the community expectation. And that is in part how we've recognised the need to improve that existing plan. So going to level 1 now is, according to our current plan, the restriction level itself, but we're moving to level 1 outside of the normal trigger points, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, any more
If
questions?
I may, Mr. Mayor.
Put councillor Burns.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't support moving at all. In fact, I'd actually, if we were going to move, I'd go to 3. But I don't support moving back to level 1. It has rained a lot. The dam's not full. We don't know what's going to happen next. Weathermen never get it right, and we know that. So it could stop raining tomorrow. We've got to show a bit of leadership on this one. I think it's time to stay where we are, because we're expecting Muswellbrook and Singleton to follow our lead. Well, they can make their own minds up, but we'll show some. I'm going to vote against it.
Hey, just a question to you, infrastructure. We can change if things turn dry. We can soon re-look at the situation.
Yeah, so part of the recommendation is that essentially we stay on this level until council decides to move again. So.
Okay, any more questions, comment, discussion? I'm going to put the vote forward as is. Those in favour? Collison, Watts, Campbell and Driscoll. Against is Fisher and Burns. Motion is carried. Okay, over to page
The
2.
record show that, please, Mr. Mayor.
What was that?
You just wanted to record it in the minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, questions with notice. Councillors, is everyone happy with the responses there in front of you?
I
Councillor,
am very happy. Thank you very much.
okay, councillor, what's your happy?
Never happy, you know that. Just to say that I put a question in December, and 3 months later, we still have not got a response from a local tradesman. I think that's pretty ordinary, if I could say those words. We have Scone Cup in about 6 weeks, and we've still got scaffolding sitting out the front of the picture theatre again this year. So is there any way we can get a response or get something done, or?
Through Mr. Mayor, we can chase up the builder and come back to you.
If I may,
Just pull it down.
if I may, Mr. Mayor, a response was provided by the builder and by the owner. It came to the CBD Revitalization Committee. I'm not sure if it made it into the papers because I haven't been at all the meetings, so I'm sorry, but a response has been furnished.
The response hasn't come to councillor questions, and these are my questions, and it's got here. Council staff have contacted the builder for an update and are awaiting a response. So we haven't got a response through council, maybe through your meeting. The other thing was in relation to the old Vogue Cafe. We've kind of moved on from that stage, and it did say there was no health risk. With the mouse plague that we're having at the moment, I would say that I think that maybe the state of the building is in disrepair inside, and maybe we could follow that one up as well. Again, another empty building that's not going to look that great during our Scone Horse Festival. And has the Scone, I must go through them all. Has the Scone pool been discussed with our new GM?
I haven't had a briefing yet. I'm still
Okay.
catching up on a number of items, and that's one of the ones that's still on my list.
When it gets due, can we have that incorporated into an action under the operational plan? And the last one was in relation to the connectivity about the bike. And I'll just ask, when will Fareham Lane's funds be spent on the essential part of the bike path connectivity to be added? Take that on board maybe, yeah?
Take that on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Abbott's apology. So, okay, councillors, that's the end of the ordinary agenda. Can I have someone move me into closed council? Move Councillor Fisher, second Councillor Campbell. All in favour? Against? Carried.